Hi guys, Brett here from Hearns Hobbies, and today I'd like to talk to you about Tamiya's Comical Grasshopper. Now we've already done an unboxing on this bad boy, but we're going to do a 6 or 7 part series build on getting it built, getting it running, getting it to the track and having some fun. So join me as we take a lid off the box, jump in and get this bad boy built. Now the Comical series has been around for quite some time now from Tamiya. Wow, look at this big polycarbonate body, which is super thick. Really excited about that. We've got big tires in there. I'll just put this stuff out the way. Okay, that's what we're after, the instructions. That is the handiest place to start. Okay, I've got a few parts trays there. Do a bit of sorting. Excuse the rustling. We've got our speed controller. Right, and we've got our parts bags. So let's have a look at page 1. Beautiful, concise instructions, typical Tamiya and industry leading. Okay, so it's telling me here that it comes with a pre-assembled gearbox, which is fantastic for beginners and first-time builders. However, with the intention that this is going to go on the racetrack and actually be used quite a bit, I want to ensure that it lasts long and performs well. So for that, I really want to fit bearings inside the gearbox, and I'm sure that Tamiya have only fitted bushings, so there'll be a combination of potentially bronze and nylon bushings in there. So I'm going to go ahead to the transmission page, and because everything bolts to it, I'm going to actually take it apart and ball race it before we even start. So let's come to the transmission page, which is here. Okay, so we've effectively got to work our way backwards from page 18, where you bolt them, screw the motor on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this apart. Got my handy NINESTEPS toolkit here off to the side, and I've got my parts trays. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the motor, taking note that it's in position 18 for the pinion, which would indicate to me that it does in fact have the 18 tooth on there. So while I'm here and rummaging through the transmission, I might take the opportunity to put the bigger pinion on, or in fact I might even just run it for the first pack or two with the 18, just to bed everything in and run it all in. Yep, there we have 18, little bit of grease. It's got the Tamiya dust cap on the motor, which is really good, so it saves dirt coming in through the motor vents and going into the transmission case. Really neat. Okay, put that in my parts tray, motor screws, and then I'm going to go ahead and start taking the transmission case apart. Just looking at the screw sizes while I'm talking to you, and luckily they all seem to be the same 3x10 self-tappet screw. So I'm just going to whiz this gearbox apart here. The great thing about the Comical series is that they're really easy and simplistic. So great first time and fun kit. You know, I'm led to believe they're very robust and sturdy, and provide plenty of smiles, which is what RC is all about. So here we go, 5 screws, and hopefully I can just lift the gearbox case off if I undid the screws properly. Here we go. Give it a little tap to make sure everything sits. And you can see exactly what I thought, is that they have in fact used a load of nylon bushings and bronze bushings in here. So I'm going to go ahead and disassemble it and re-race it. Now the beauty, I'm using a NINESTEPS bearing kit here. So these bearings are available for all popular makes and models. And this one is all rubber sealed, which is really good, and there's 16 of the same size bearing, so quite an easy bearing kit as well. Should be 16 11 by 5 11 millimeter by 5 millimeter by 4 millimeter, and that refers to the outside diameter, the inside diameter, and the width. So I'll go ahead and place them over here, my parts tray. Get these screws out of the case. One more screw in there. There we go. First bush out. Here we go. And just change one for one. And you can see here how these bushes are in fact just one piece nylon, which are fine. They're really good. They're very like they don't have a lot of friction in them. But the problem is that they do wear, and they do get sloppy, and they will make the gears wear faster and be noisier. So we're going to go ahead and use this ball bearing, and it's got 2 rubber seals, so that'll help keep all the grease and oil in, and the dirt and muck out of the bearing race itself. So go ahead here, just do one gear at a time if I can. Just swapping each and every one. Okay, another bearing here. Might have to take the center one out so I can get the diff housing out. And I'm just putting it in exactly the same way that it's coming out. And bearings will mean that it should, in theory, be faster and more efficient, which will mean I'll get more runtime from the batteries. And yeah, it will last longer, not only in battery runtime, but like I said, the gears should wear better and be quieter, which is really going to help bring up the fun levels. Okay, got this one going in, bearing, like so. Little idler gear here. Get these, you can see these bushes here are much different in construction. These are bronze-like bush, and yeah, they're quite heavy. Again, they're a little bit more robust, but they also have a little bit more friction than the nylon ones, but nothing like the bearings that we're putting in them. And while I've got this gear in my hand, we can see the size and the thickness of the gear itself, which is going to ensure that there's plenty of the surface area in the gears, and they'll last for a long time. Just piecing it all together. Here we go. Come together very nice and smoothly. And that is as simple as re-racing the gearbox. Now while I'm in here though, I am going to put a little bit more grease. And for that, let's have a look inside the Tamiya pack, whether they've given me a nice big tube of grease for assembly. Excuse me while I rustle around. They have indeed. So I open this up with my hobby knife. It's always important when you start a build, make sure your hobby knife's in good nick, nice and sharp. They're much safer proposition when they've got fresh blades and nice and sharp. Always seem to cut myself when it's gone blunt. more than when it's sharp. Okay, got our tube of grease here. This is going to be perfect on all these gears, and there's plenty of them, like so. That should be enough. Okay, got a little rag here, I'm just going to wipe that off. Then we'll get these gear cases together and actually start the build. Going to line up these pins. There we go. Gearbox case is in. So I'll put these 5 screws back in and put the motor. Now usually this part of the kit, or usually before I put a motor into a transmission or into a car, I usually, if it's a brush motor in particular, I usually run it in. And usually with a sealed brush motor, I'll run it in water, commonly referred to as water dipping, and that helps run it in, clean it and so forth. So check my other videos for that technique. I'm not going to use that today on this car. Like I said, I'm going to go with the small pinion option and we'll run it in with that. Here we go. Get these in. There we go. Now I'm not doing them up tight yet. I'm just seating them all, and I'll do them up once I know that all the surfaces are mated and aligned before I actually apply torque to them. Can just visually see here, make sure there's no crack in the case, there's no gaps. We can go ahead now and tighten these screws. Start from the middle, like this. You don't have to do these up excessively tight. And Tamiya use predominantly in their plastic casings and fittings, they use self-tappers, which are really good because they quite an aggressive thread on them, which actually acts like a thread lock, if you will, too. They're really hard to unwind and won't rattle themselves loose. Give that a little bit of a wipe over. Go ahead and place this motor back in, like so. Now the motor mount was on 18 because that's the pinion that's in there. So just line that up with the screw, get that started. Like so. Get this one in the 18 position as well. These can be a little bit tricky to line up first time. Again, don't do one up unevenly without the other one. We'll get them both seated and in position before we go ahead and tighten them. Like so. There we go. That is fantastic. Come together. So here we have one ball race transmission. Okay. I know that seems counterproductive, but that has saved a lot of work later on. So let's go back to the start of the book now and go for step 1. Okay, so you can put the transmission assembly to the side and we can start opening our screws and parts cases. Got my handy 9-step snippers here. Now when you do Tamiya kits, you'll notice that you usually have 3 or 4 bags open of screws at once. So it's important to have all your screws in different compartments. That way gives us a nice amount of reference and organisation to our build. D bag, C bag, and the A bag. Okay, so let's start with the A bag. Got here step 1. So they've got this handy little reference here on the instructions, which we're counting. There are real scales, so you can put the screws over exactly what you're building. And this is counting for, this is calling for 4 3 by 10 millimeter screws and some ball ends. The ball ends are in this little bag. Be careful with the hobby knives because they are scalpel sharp. Okay, and I've got 2 of these ball connectors. Okay, so I've got those parts. Now we can go ahead and cut the parts off the part tree. So I need the end parts. So excuse me while I just dig through the parts trees. When you start building these kits, you end up having to open a lot of plastic bags. The end parts, L parts, and some of the plastics, you can see a lot of the trees are completely different plastics, so some of them are much more flexible. This is the M parts tree, not required yet. Okay, what have we got here? Here we have the end parts tree, and I've got my mighty 9-steps nippers here. And I'm going to go ahead and trim these off as per the book. So I need N1 and N2, N3, and lucky there is 2 of them. So we've got N2 and we've got an N3. Okay, so I put those to the side, double check to make sure that there's no flashing or anything there. You can either cut them off with the nippers or you can run your hobby knife along it. Go ahead and build us some what looks like suspension arms. Making sure that it all looks nice. That looks right to me, so we'll go ahead. We've got these 2 tabs up, yep, okay. We can go ahead and lock it into place with these screws. I've got my 9-steps 5mm GIS screwdriver here, Japanese industrial standards. So it is a star style, but it's not a Phillips per se. It is a Japanese style screwdriver. So if you don't have one of those, they will make your build come along much better. Put this in, this ball stud into the suspension arm. Go ahead and wind it in. Got a handy Tamiya 4-weight tool for this one. Again, there's no need to over tighten anything. And that is one arm done. Go ahead and carry out the same scenario for the other side. Get the screws in, like so, just bear with me. Like so. Okay. I'll go ahead and put this one in. Again with the 5.5mm cross wrench. Like so. Okay, we've got 2 suspension arms. Next step, step number 2. Got to find some 2 BA1 hinge screws. That's these. We've got some hinge pins here. some beautifully typical Tamiya hinge pin, long hinge pin with a big self-tapping thread on it. Make sure that we've got the right length because there is 2 in this kit, inner and outer. The long ones, that's correct. 2 of those, and the end 5 parts. 2 of those. Like so. Okay, now I can offer it up to the rear of the gearbox housing. A couple of ball studs actually. These ones just here. We'll start with those said ball studs. There's no need to pre-drill or pre-tap any of this car, I don't believe. It should all go together nice and easy and straightforward. Oops. And it's handy when you are building a kit to give yourself plenty of space. Keep the instructions close to hand, and I'll generally work on the instructions unless it's a dirty part. So I've got a constant reference of material. Give yourself a nice workspace, work on a mat or a pit table so your stuff doesn't bounce all over the floor. Do things up gently, like so. Go ahead and put our top ones in. My screwdriver. It's going to come through here like this. Sorry if my head gets in the way every now and then. Top suspension arm going in place. And for the size and the weight of this car, it is crazy how actually strong it looks and robust. They've really put a lot of time and effort in to make sure that the car is going to last a long time. Here we go. Okay, now what we want in our suspension arms, upper and lower, is the fact that they are nice and smooth and can fall under their own weight, which we've got here. So we can go ahead and start screwing in our suspension arms. Hinge pin on. Beautiful, beautiful injection molding and precision engineering on this, the way that it's going together. It's really requiring no hand finishing or sanding or filing to get things to fit or line up. You can see in fact how easy it is going together. And the arm length on this is probably considerable to what we had on the first RC10 back in like 1985. There we go. And there is the rear suspension arms on the car. That is step 2 done. Let's go over and have a look at step 3, what we're up to. Okay, so already we're starting with the wheelie bar and that assembly. And we've got our drive shafts to go in, our diff out drives, which is really a crucial part of the assembly. I'll go ahead here and put some pre-grease these before they go in. Make sure that we've got a really nice, smooth, long-lasting diff action, which is going to be helped by our ball racing of the transmission itself. Okay, so the wheelie bar is F6 and F7. Now my F tree is right here. Okay, here we've got our wheelie bar. Go ahead and cut that off the parts tree. using my NINESTEPS cutters, of course. Cutting away. I can run over that, make sure we've got no flashings. Just get my hobby knife close to hand. You can see here I've got a little bit that I can clean up. That said, that the nippers are doing a pretty good job of taking care of that for me. Really good fixture and finish on this. Okay, that's our wheelie bar. Now we've got a wheelie bar pin there. Can go ahead and piece that in while I'm getting the parts together, because that won't fall apart. That's super cute to have a wheelie bar on there like that. And again, we'll be looking at more 3x10 screws. We need 2 of those. And we should have 2 of the longer 3x18s, which is silver. 4 of those right there. Okay, we've got some sleeves, some spacers, got those here. Okay, so first part of the exercise is the wheelie bar. Go ahead, put those screws in, like so. Again, I'm not doing up one screw before the other until both surfaces have met and sitting flush like they are. Then go back to the other one, make sure we've still got smooth operation, everything's sitting flush, looking good. Okay, so we can bolt that onto the transmission. We've got 4 spacers. This one here is a little bit, it's not uncommon with a Tamiya build to in fact need 3 hands at some steps. Here we go, get this one started. Then it should give me enough room, hopefully, to slide these spacers in and get these longer screws done. Like so. Get this one started to ensure that it's not going to fall apart on me. See if I can piece these 2 lower ones in. I can use the pliers to hold this one, hopefully. Like so. Then we'll get this one in. The last one's always the hardest for some reason. There we go. Go ahead and get that one in. Now I can go around and tighten all 4 of the screws up on the wheelie bar. Again, just offering them up until they pull up nice and flat. All surfaces are mating. There we go. Then we have our wheelie bar attachment of the car. Alright, what else have we got in this step? We've got our couple of O-rings for our dog bones. Now on a previous Tamiya kit that I've built, I actually had to adjust how many O-rings I put in because I found it actually too tight. But I will build it the way that Tamiya is specifying. Get the diff out drives in, get the center pin and splines all lined up. Shouldn't have to force anything on this. Got a beautiful diff action. Like so. Beautiful. Okay, so now I can go down to step 4. I've got the O-rings here ready to deploy for those dog bones, but I won't put them in until I get the outer hubs on. So, the outer hub assembly, which I'm going to put on now, I require 2 hinge pins, 2 upper hinge pins, and how many screws? No screws for this one. A couple of dog bones, and the wheel axle. That's what we need here. Okay, so, and that part is B4. And this gives me another opportunity to fit more of my NINESTEPS bearings in. So let's come over to the B parts tree, which I hope is this one. Yep. Go ahead and cut the rear hubs off of that. Clean these up with the hobby knife, like so. There we go. Going to go ahead and put bearings in it. Again, I'm not going to put the Tamiya bearings. I'm going to put our NINESTEPS rubber seal bearings in here. There's one. There's 2, put it straight on the out drive. That way I can offer it up to the hub and feed it through. Like so. Okay, both hubs on. Let's screw them onto the car. So the lower one, screw goes in from the back. Our outer hinge pin goes onto the hub. Again, fits in the arm beautifully without any hand fitting, without any hand finishing whatsoever. Hinge pin in. Now I can put my O-rings in without them falling out during the rest of the build. So one in the out drive and one in the wheel axle. Get it to sit nice and flush in there. Might need the hand. This little tool here is called a Gizmo. Again from NINESTEPS. Really handy plastic tools to help you build your car when you can't get in. The reason I'm not using a metal tool for this is because I don't actually want to damage the O-ring or risk cutting it. Okay. Can get this side together. Too much suspension travel, and now the out drives come out of place. Once I get the upper arm connection in, that won't happen. There we go. Like so. Again, sometimes it feels like you need a third hand with some of these kits. Put the upper arm on, the upper hinge pin. Then it should all hold together. Like so, nice smooth action. And I think that those O-rings were actually going to be the right dimensions for this one, which is good. Go ahead and assemble this one now. The other hub's going to go on. Like so. Go ahead, put my O-rings in. One in the axle. Beautiful. One in the diff out drive. And they should eliminate some of the slop and act as a damper for the drive shafts, I suppose. Give it a less rattling effect as the car's going through its range of suspension movement. Go ahead and get this arm.
How you doing, Jeff?
Excuse me while I just line that up. And then in it goes. Here I go screwing this top one in. Okay, we've got beautiful suspension movement, and that is the arm assembly of the rear of the Comical Grasshopper. So I think we'll call it there for today and go on to another step next episode. So this episode we've re-raced the gearbox, so taken out all the nylon and bronze bushes and put NINESTEPS bearing kit in there. We've re-greased the gears, reassembled that, then we've put the rear suspension arms on, the hubs, and while we were at it we re-raced the bearing hubs to make sure we got good movement. Okay, it's coming up really well. Super excited to get this one racing about. I'm Brett, and thanks for watching me build a Comical Grasshopper. Stay tuned for next episode.